What do you think?
Um, well, you were right about one thing.
Hmm.
It was definitely better than the other one, and definitely the best movie from that franchise.
Oh, cool. So an overall positive reaction.
Yeah. Uh, it started out, and I was like not really catching it. Um,
It takes a while.
the the amount of establishing shots, like the pace of the first like 10 minutes is just. I thought the movie had paused at one point because I was like, they're still just on this wide shot of like mountains or whatever. Like, how are we still on this? Um, and I did think some of the structure changes were interesting, but like, it was so much of the same stuff, just like kind of slightly different or expanded on from the original cut of it. That I was just like, okay, this is so this is the same thing, but more of it. Well, great. That's what that's really speaking my language. Um, and then over time it picked up. I like what they did with Cyborg. I like that he's like a character
Yeah.
and like has like a role other than just is the technology guy. Everything with his dad was more fleshed out. Um, I thought the climax was a lot better than just in every way. It looked better. I thought the fact that like all the characters were involved more was better. Um, Superman's line when he steps in is just so much better in that one
Oh, I
than the
know.
original.
Not
Just
impressed.
just so much better than the original. Oh my god, that line in the original was just a complete anyway. Um so yeah, I thought all that stuff was cool. I'm a little like whatever about the whole like Speed Force time reverse thing.
I thought that
Uh
was so cool.
nah, like I don't know. It's just like it's just like Superman 1. Like I'll give it a pass, but like yeah.
Well, hold on. So I thought it was really really cool the way that they did it because on one hand Superman is very powerful and the scene where the entire Justice League fights Superman I think is really cool. But specifically like it makes the Flash look kind of useless. And I feel like the first Justice League really like didn't help that at all. There was a scene where like Flash was getting people out of the buildings or whatever in this the weird town that didn't even exist in this cut.
Yeah,
And
which was
super
again, a good decision.
and Superman was like taking a whole building and doing it just as fast, like going
Yeah,
just as fast as he was, and it was like, okay, look, Superman is fast, as fast as the Flash, but Flash can do fucking crazy shit with his speed that Superman can't do. And I was really happy that they added that in this cut because he literally saved them. Like they would have all died if he hadn't used the Speed Force to reverse time in that moment. And it was
yeah,
clear that it was something he knew he could do, but he had never done before. And he was like, "Okay, this is it. I have seconds to make this decision, and I got to do it now." And the way that he literally ran time backwards, like he ran on structures that weren't there, that like formed under him. I was like, "That is so fucking cool." Like I thought
yeah.
that part was really cool.
I thought the way it was like shot and like edited was all good, but then again, thought for 1980 whatever, the way it was shot in the first Superman movie was like it looked good too. But I just like I don't know. To me, that
It's
I
kind
guess
of
the other
cheesy in the. I mean, I love the original Superman, but like it was kind of
I guess
cheesy.
the other reason is just like I was kind of into the idea of like maybe this was going to be like another cyborg thing, like he was going to figure out how to do it, given that Flash had just been running it at like nearly his max speed, gotten like severely injured, and then was just like, actually, I'm going to go even faster now. I was like, whoa, 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 slow down there, no pun intended. But sure. um
I think it was kind of dumb that that dude managed to shoot the Flash like when he was
yeah,
going at his max speed.
and I like the way they tried to build up to it, like give it some credibility. I was like, just because just because I see like cars on a racetrack that's going in like a circle doesn't mean I'm going to be able to hit one of them with something just because I look at it. Like, I don't know. That didn't make a whole lot of sense. Now, granted, I still, there are still some of the things about it, like just the nature of the movie. I think just makes me skeptical of it in some ways. Like the way they talk about this team attachment and like it just doesn't land for me. I guess Superman is supposed to be like a main character and literally does not speak to half of the people on the team and never has because of the way the movie is structured. He is he has only ever spoken to two of these people, and one of them he tried to kill one. And
I think Batman tried to kill him more so than
that's true.
Superman did.
That's true. But I mean, that's like a fault of like the movies in the past. The entire Superman death revival thing has always been contrived, and I will never not think it's contrived. It was so it was so obvious that he was going to live like the whole time, and
Well, literally at the end of the movie that he died in, it was suggested that he was still alive.
yes, which is also weird because like, well, maybe it's that Kryptonian coma you were telling me about with the original comic or something.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what they were like trying to imply with the fact that even while he was dead, he was still moving or something.
Yeah, I don't really know how the ending of Batman vs Superman connects to this. Like, because it was implied that he like was still alive, but then he was dead. They brought him back in this one, you know. Like, I don't really get that, but
stuff like that. And then I don't know. To me, it's like the fact that Cyborg has like the biggest, or really like the only like really good character arc, I think, is just kind of emblematic. It's like I don't know. It's like if in the Avengers, if like Black Widow was the only character that like really learned anything, it would just be weird.
well, I liked Batman's arc specifically in this because two things. Batman, this is the only movie where Batman didn't actually fucking kill anybody. Anybody, I should say. He killed aliens, but he didn't kill anybody, you know? Like any
That's true.
person. I was like, oh, hey, cool. That's Batman, you know? That makes more sense. And also, Batman, his whole arc was that he realized, oh, I fucked up really badly the last movie. Like, I probably shouldn't have beaten this alien that can save the world against huge godlike threats with an inch of his life and then contribute to his overall death. Because now there's this crazy fucking dude coming to our planet in search for this like cosmic level destruction machine or mind control technically. And he's like, "All right, well, I can't just call Superman up because he's dead. What do I do? Like, I'm going to try to put together a ragtag team of heroes, and then the moment that the opportunity presents itself for him to bring Superman back, he's like, okay, we're all in. I don't care. Like, we need to bring Superman back. I fucked up. We need this guy, or we're all going to die, you know?
See, here's my thing, though, is Batman is doing that from the very first moment he's on the screen. And then you spend 4 hours with him, and he's still, like, at the same place. It's not like the attack happens, and then he's like, oh, I fucked up. The first moment you see him being like, I fucked up, this is my attempt to fix it. Like, very early on, he says that thing to Alfred, like, I made a promise on his grave that I was going to stop this stuff from happening. And I don't know, to me, it's just like, if Batman is going to be such a driving force of the movie, the fact that his like character progression is already complete when the movie begins, I've never really been into that Batman. In obviously like the guns and stuff like play a role in that and everything in Dawn of Justice, which sucks, is just a piece of shit, awful. But in that movie, like at least you know there is a progression in the sense of he starts out in this place of deep paranoia, and then by the end of the movie, when a bigger threat arises and they find some commonality, even though it's dumb commonality, but let's not talk about that. Like
Martha.
something has changed in him,
But
you know. And
yeah,
in this movie, like I didn't get that. And when like one of the main characters who I'm spending 4 hours with seems to have already figured out himself at the start of the movie, I don't know. It just didn't work for me.
well, I think he was kind of like that. It's gonna sound weird, but like that Dumbledore role. He was like, okay, I need to help guide these people to figure themselves out because I know what I'm about right now. I know what I need to do and what needs to be fixed here. And but what I thought was, and this is probably because his arc had a bigger plan. Like he had an arc that was going to be spread out through all the movies that were going to happen in this story, which aren't going to happen anymore. But what I really like is that he starts off in Batman vs Superman in a place of extreme paranoia, like you were saying, and like in a completely warped sense of what he should be doing. Comes to terms with his mistake at the end and beginning of this movie and the end of the last movie, and you're right, kind of has the same uh, thing about him this whole movie. Like, that doesn't really have any like change in his character, but there is that scene at the very end of the movie where he has the dream that kind of is a continuation of the dream he had in Batman vs Superman in the Ultimate Edition, or I think it was in the regular edition too. But
Okay.
you know what I'm talking about? That dream where it's
Yes,
like
yes, and okay, I have a really hot take. You ready for this?
what?
I fucking hated that.
Really?
Yes, because I guess at that. Well, let me like in sort of a vacuum sense, it was cool, but I thought, ironically, the way the original cut ended with a short sequel setup that was never going to happen was better for the movie than, okay, we just wrapped up this story. Now we're going to suck you into a completely different movie for 10 minutes. And
I
I don't know why, like it just felt weird to me. It just, like, there's a difference to me between, like, oh, let's do a sequel tease and let's be Amazing Spider-Man 2 and set up the next 3 sequels all at once to end your movie. I was just like, wrap it up.
well, so I really liked it, but maybe that's because I know a little bit more of what was planned.
Yeah,
And
okay. You might be, maybe if I knew this was actually going to continue, I would have cared more. But knowing what's happened to it, I was just like, wrap it up, please, end the film.
I was always very intrigued with Snyder's direction in the Justice League movies, just specifically like what was going to happen with Superman and like why he, despite the fact that he clearly isn't evil and hasn't been so far, there have been these hints that in the future he will be almost like this injustice like universe, like ever since the fair.
Literally what it is.
Right.
They explicitly tell you that's what it is.
Well, it's not literally injustice. Apparently, the plan was,
Lois dies, though. That's really
yeah,
sign.
yeah. But what it's supposed to be, instead of Superman knowingly going crazy because of Lois's death, it was supposed to be that Lois's death was going to put Clark in a mental vulnerability. Like, he was going to be mentally vulnerable the to a point where he was going to be taken over by the anti-life equation, and then Darkseid was going to have complete control over him, which meant the end of the world. So it wasn't like he was going to be consciously evil. It was that Darkseid, I don't know how it was going to happen, but Lois was going to be killed, and Superman was going to be so grief-stricken and so vulnerable that Darkseid was going to infect him with the anti-life virus and have complete control over him.
Well, isn't the point of the anti-life equation, though, that he can just do that to everyone?
Not Superman. He can do it to most beings, but Superman is a Kryptonian.
Well, no, that's what I mean. So, but in the dream, then, beings definitively way weaker than Superman. Why are they resistant to it? That like.
Well,
That,
it's never gonna be explained,
yeah.
so we never will really know. But my guess is that most beings will be affected by it, but people like, Wonder Woman or Aquaman won't because they're the prime of their species or something.
Deathstroke.
Deathstroke? What about him?
He wasn't affected by it, or didn't. He was with the resistance.
Well, I don't imagine that Darkseid is going to think any human is going to be worth taking control of for his own benefit. You know what I mean? That's probably why Batman and Deathstroke and
like, but isn't the point I get what you're saying? Like he's gonna pick the strong guy and go after him. But isn't the point of the anti-life equation that he can just control all of the weak beings in the universe all at once with no effort?
in the comics, it was probably going to be different in these movies.
Okay, because that's what he said, something like that. He said like all of creation will be mine or something like that. Also, I've got opinions about Darkseid too. So everything about Darkseid was cool, and I thought Steppenwolf was like better in this than he was in the original. That said, I do feel a little bit like, I don't know, to me the idea that Darkseid wouldn't personally seek out revenge seems to cheapen it a little bit for me.
Like, against, well, what do you mean, seek out revenge?
Like, he attempted his conquest of Earth and lost, right? They rewrote the whole flashback to be Darkseid tried to conquer Earth with the mother boxes and was driven back, and this was the only planet he ever lost.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's like, if that threat has already been like so clearly established, the idea that then he would send some minion to go do it just makes Steppenwolf seem less impactful to me. Because like, the whole movie that this guy isn't the real threat, and it's not just like hinted at that he's not the real threat. Like, you see the real threat. You know who he is and what he did and what it took to defeat him. So I don't know. To me, like, I think it's a cool inclusion, but you know what I'm saying? Like, just if you would have already seen fight scenes with Thanos and then Loki showed up, wouldn't you be like, okay, but we've already seen like the bigger threat and you're not that guy? Like, don't you think that would change how it lands for you?
This is actually probably the biggest problem of the movie for me, is that there is a gigantic plot hole surrounding that whole, what you're saying there, because it's not that he doesn't go there himself because he doesn't seek out revenge. It's the fact that he literally forgets what the fuck Earth is. Somehow Darkseid lost to Earth, and it's the only place he's ever lost, and then he forgot about that. Like, he did, because he didn't know the mother boxes were there until they activated after Superman died. And he also somehow didn't know that the anti-life equation was there.
Yes.
Even though that's why he was there in the first place.
Yeah, that entire thing just seemed like weird to me. Like,
it doesn't make any sense. It's a huge plot hole.
I feel like they should have really held off that. Like, I feel like what would have helped it a lot is if they had said Darkseid came to try to conquer Earth, but you never saw him in the flashback, or you only saw like really vague hints of him. And then, like, maybe you could have kept the thing at the end of the movie where he goes back through the portal. But to me, I'm just watching Steppenwolf and being like, you are the sidekick. Like, I'm watching Superman fight you. I'm watching all the others try to fight you at once. But I know you're the sidekick. And again, the negative comparison I would have to that is something like Amazing Spider-Man 2, where I'm watching the movie and I'm like, well, this looks cool, but deep down I know this is just set up for the real thing that unfortunately now for them is never coming. But to me, that's sort of the line you walk. And I mean, same thing happened with Amazing Spider-Man, right? They wasted the entire movie on a Sinister Six setup for a franchise that did not continue.
Right. Well, honestly, one thing about that, though, I did think added to the movie, which is knowing that Steppenwolf wasn't the main bad guy, made it more terrifying when you considered how strong Steppenwolf was compared to the heroes that were supposed to be protecting the Earth. Like, Steppenwolf wasn't the main bad guy, but he was still strong enough to take on the entire Justice League minus Superman easily. So it's
Yeah.
like how fucking strong is Darkseid? Like
Well, that is I want to be able to think about how strong is Darkseid, but I saw Darkseid lose a fight already. To me, it's better if you keep that kind of thing in mystery. Like you only hear that. Like if they only kept the conversations with the guy who was like his aide or whatever, who he kept talking to, and you kept seeing how he was like so afraid of failing him, but you didn't know, like you knew like very little about like his capabilities or anything. I guess what I would say is seeing Darkseid was cool, but I feel like they kind of leaned into him and overused him a little bit for what the movie was. So that was like a small thing. What else did I think? It was weird that Martian Manhunter was in the movie for 2 seconds.
another big plot hole that this movie introduces is that apparently the Martian Manhunter was there for the entire events of Man of Steel and didn't do a damn thing.
Yeah, that was really weird. I was like, wait, why is he this guy?
Yeah, this guy that literally was there since the first movie, who was a huge part of Man of Steel, was apparently Martian Manhunter the whole time and didn't
Who
contribute.
is a high tier Marvel superhero by every
DC.
I'm aware of. DC, yeah, by DC hero by any measure that I'm aware of. Get in the game, son. Like,
he almost
and not this like, oh, I know they're gonna revive Superman, so I need to go tell Lois to go outside so that she can the power of love and stop Superman from just destroying the Earth. Like, no, like go turn into the green guy and shapeshift a giant fist and punch dudes in the face.
even like before that, like he almost let Zod destroy the Earth.
Yeah,
He didn't do anything.
I feel like it might have been better if they had set up that like he had taken his place somehow at some point.
Yeah, I thought that's what they were going to imply eventually, but no, it was just that he
Yeah,
was the Martian Manhunter.
you know, a lot of the other stuff that they kept the same. I thought was cool. I like seeing more of the Flash stuff, like the scene with the car crash. I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. I was
He has
actually a really big fan of the Batman Joker exchange. I think this is the only time I've ever looked at the Jared Leto Joker and been like, okay, he had potential to do this right.
I
Be-
mean, he said, "I'll fucking kill you someday." I was a little bit like, okay, come on.
but no, but think about it, because that's the part that I like. Batman says that threat, and he specifically mentions Harley Quinn dying in his arms, and that her last wish was that he would kill Joker, and he's like, believe me, I fucking will. And Joker has this moment where he like starts like shaking and
Yeah, that's it for a second.
you don't know why he's shaking, but it's either because of that he mentioned Harley or it's because he actually believes him. But then it all goes away, and he looks at him and he goes, "Oh, you're good," because he realizes in that moment he's not being serious. Batman's just being just pissed off and frustrated, and he's trying to
Yeah,
get under Joker's skin like Joker was getting under his, and he's like, "Oh, you're good." Like that was so Batman and Joker for me. I really liked that exchange.
yeah, it was all right. Like I said, I felt like the movie was over. You know, it could have.
I was always like I'm disappointed that we're not gonna see that story fleshed out, because I was always really curious. That was the best part of Batman vs Superman for me, was that apocalyptic future, because to me that gave more that made me understand more why Batman would be killing anybody in general, because if he was in this fucking Fallout landscape where literally the entire world is at the brink of destruction and he's surviving on the skin of his teeth every moment of his life because he's trying to stay out of the sight of Superman, and that everybody around him is like in cohorts with Superman slash Darkseid, and he's literally in a Fallout game, but like if in that Fallout game Superman was constantly watching and you had to be sneaking constantly. That makes more sense to me why Batman would be pulling out fucking pistols and machine guns and shooting people.
Like he's doing that in the past before the future, though. My I thought what they were implying there was like he was like seeing the future.
Right, he was.
So, but before he's before he sees that future, he's already been killing people.
I know, but what I'm saying is that I wanted to see that Batman have a justification to be doing that because I didn't feel like he had one in Batman vs Superman.
Okay, now I see what you mean.
Because
Yeah.
it made more sense that Batman would be doing these badass things that also involved guns and killing if he was in that kind of landscape. And I felt like that's what, that would have been cool to see because it doesn't make sense that Batman kills people, but the way that he did it was kind of cool. It was just hard to get past the fact that this character that I've known forever who never does this is doing this, But in that world, in that like literally everyone's dead and you're in a Fallout game, yeah, I think Batman's going to start killing people because he literally will die if he doesn't. Reportedly, the plan was that Batman was going to pull an endgame and like go back in time, find a way to go back in time to stop Lois from dying so that Superman could never be vulnerable enough to get taken over by the anti-life equation.
He's basing all of his actions on apocalyptic dreams of his own failure and sacrificing his life to make sure they don't come true. Gosh, we've seen that before.
Yeah, I wonder where.
Yeah.
But
also, I think one thing that I'm fairly confident is I think I would have maybe a better impression of the Affleck Batman and the Leto Joker had I watched this movie before I saw the Reeves Batman. Just because I like that Batman a lot more than I like the Affleck Batman setup. And so I'm seeing this as like bootleg Batman now, because like the real Batman of this generation to me now is that one, like at least in terms of movies. Now that the last Bale movie is 10 years old or whatever, 11 years old, like that Batman is like the bootleg ripoff Batman, and like the Reeves Batman is like the real Batman movie.
I actually like Affleck's Batman. I can't get behind the fact that he was Murder Man in Batman vs Superman, but there are a few scenes. There are quite a few scenes. I feel like in Justice League and even in Batman vs Superman that really made me like this Batman. It's just the fact that he kills that brings it down for me. Like the warehouse scene in Batman vs Superman, so good.
Yeah. That scene is one of the positive things that I can say about the movie. That scene is really good.
Which makes it more frustrating because it lets you know that he did get Batman. He knows how to do Batman. He just didn't. He just made it so Batman killed in this movie.
I don't know. To me, like, and maybe it's because this is just kind of the nature of superhero team ups. Like maybe if there was like another real hero character in the Reeves Batman movie that they had to like spend time with, this would have been the case. I look at the Batmans of the past, like even Bale or Keaton, and then also with Pattinson. Like, I feel like I understand them better in the sense of like how their role as Batman and how the different points they're at throughout the films that they're involved in and stuff. Like, I just feel like I understand them as characters better because for just a lot of reasons. Like, I feel like more time is devoted to them engaging with the world in a way that isn't just like driving the plot forward, I guess.
You're talking about the past Batmans?
Yes, like I just feel like I know them better as characters and I relate to them more as characters. And like I see what they're doing with Affleck's Batman because he's supposed to be like what's the old Batman? What's the story?
Dark Knight Returns. Yeah.
Yeah, like he's supposed to be like that Batman and he's supposed to be like really world worn and such. And that comes through a few times, but I think just because even a 4-hour movie is like so full of stuff they have to set up. Like, I just don't feel like I relate to Affleck's Batman as a character, like, nearly as much as the other ones. Mostly. There are exceptions to that. Like, there are a couple, like, the talks that he has with Alfred in Batman vs. Superman are pretty good. And then the conversation they have here, about, like, Batman wanting to keep the promise he made on, like, Superman's dying wish or whatever. That kind of stuff, like, I kind of get it. But I don't know. His Batman does not work for me as well as the others do. And now the killing thing is a part of it. But like I said, I feel like I know the others as characters better, and I feel more like invested in them. But they also star in their own movies, so that might be a big reason why.
That's exactly what I think the reason is. Based off of the way that the way that this Batman is in these movies, I feel like if he had his own movie dedicated to him, there would be I think the overall opinion on him would improve a lot. Maybe not because he kills, and I feel like that just ruins it for everybody. But
Yeah.
if you were to take out the fact that this Batman kills people, I honestly think that Affleck's Batman is the closest Batman to the comics out of all the Batmans. Which doesn't mean that he's the best. I just really appreciate that because of all the Batmen, Affleck's Batman seems like he's the one who could actually take down Darkseid. He's the one who could actually be that Bat God that you see in the comics where like somehow Batman can go up against like Darkseid and like shoot him in the chest with a gun that could kill him, you know.
It's comic booky. The others are like, it is ironically, despite being dark as hell for most of it and just gloomy, the tone of all like the entire franchise being really gloomy, he somehow is the most comic booky Batman. It's really weird.
Yeah. And again, it's not a knock on the other Batman, especially because Bale is probably still my favorite Batman. But there's no way in hell I could see Christian Bale's Batman going up against Darkseid or going up against Superman.
Like those are not those movies.
Right. And even Robert Pattinson's Batman, he probably couldn't either. I haven't seen that yet, you know. Like he's good, but he's more like early year one Batman.
Yeah, he's a street level character.
Which honestly is probably more narratively compelling anyways. Like I like those versions of Batman's for their stories better anyways. But there's something that I really appreciate about finally bringing a comic, like a mainline comic Batman to the screen where like the Batman that I read in comics where I'm like, holy shit, how did he pull that off? How is he facing down a cosmic god and not getting crushed? How is he prepared for this? How is like specifically in the Snyder Cut, the last hour, like that big climax, I was so happy with how much more Batman was contributing to everything. Because in the original cut, Batman might as well have not existed in the climax. He fucking did jack shit.
Yeah, he shot a few parademons, and that was like it.
In the Snyder Cut, he charged. He was the one, the front lines, going in on his bat machines, taking down shields, literally driving into aliens, going up on the tower and like military style shooting them down. That feels more like comic book Batman, the Batman that they had set up in Batman vs Superman. That's what I really like about Affleck's Batman, is that it makes more sense to me that this Batman would be going up against people like Darkseid and like Superman, and you know, the Batman fan in me likes to see that kind of Batman being brought to screen. Now, it all gets ruined when you see him kill street level thugs by like shooting him in the head or running him over with his Batmobile. But again, in the future that Snyder had set up, it was like I was gonna see comic book Batman put in a Fallout universe. And I thought that was so compelling. Like from the very first like tease of it, where we see him chained up, and apparently that vision he had in Batman vs Superman was gonna be how he died, because he wasn't gonna make it to the end. He was gonna set up everything, and there was gonna be, I think it was Flash and Cyborg that were gonna make it to wherever they needed to be to go back in time, but Batman was gonna get caught, and that was the scene where it happened. He got caught because he thought he found kryptonite and it was a fake, and all those people worked for Superman anyways. But I was still really excited to see that kind of Batman in that kind of environment, because I don't think any other Batman could be in that environment and it be interesting. I don't think Bale's Batman or Pattinson's Batman could be in an Injustice like storyline where the whole world is ending and it's like Injustice mixed with New Vegas, and like only this Batman I could see be in that story. And that's why I'm a little disappointed we'll never get to see it, because I think that would be really cool.
I think you're definitely right about Bale. I think like everything about the way those films are made kind of indicates that it's like, to me it's a little bit like the Maguire Spider-Man movies. Like everything about, which is ironic because those are tonally like so different movies,
but neither of them seem to make sense in a world where there are superheroes beyond them. And in fact, in No Way Home, they reference that fact because they're like,
Yeah.
you got,
The
like
Avengers. Who are
they even
they?
yeah, they reference that fact. But the Pattinson Batman, like I'm a little bit more like, let's see, like if they think they can do this, then I think maybe they might be able to get their way to it. Because for one, they've established that Batman is still new at being Batman, and if they turn this into like a multiple movie franchise, I think you can kind of ramp up to that point as time goes on, right? Like it's just like any mainline franchise. Like the first movie's villain is probably not going to be as tough as the third movie's villain, and if you do that well, then that build up all makes sense.
I kind of
Maybe they
hope
just
they
don't
don't,
care.
though, honestly.
Maybe yeah, maybe he's just gonna fight like Riddler in the next movie or something. Like, and I'm fine with that. Like, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying any of that kind of stuff like could theoretically still be possible. But I'm not sure that's really how they want to go about it, given how much like politics was in that movie.
Yeah, honestly, I hope they don't because I think the style of that movie, Matt Reeves' Batman, was more grounded and benefited more from being that way. Like I liked the Batman because it was hyper focused on like the slums of Gotham and him being a detective rather than being like a combat master. While I do think that they should have added a stealth scene at all, and that was kind of a major knock on the movie for me, is that there was no point where Batman was stealthy. Literally, he walked in the door of a club and started just beating the piss out of people, which was cool. But
But
like,
he stuck in as Bruce Wayne though when he cut the power or whatever.
yeah, but I want to see Arkham style fucking stealth missions. You know,
That's
I want to see
yeah.
detective vision. I want to see him. I want to see people scared because they can't see what the fuck's in the night, and they turn around and the guy's gone, and they're like, whoa, whoa. You know, even Bale's Batman did that, and pretty effectively. Which is, I think, in the same vein of Pattinson's Batman, where he was more detective than he was combat master. But like I said, it's still cool to see combat master Batman, which I think is what Affleck was more so than he was detective Batman, you know?
Yeah.
Even though I personally prefer detective Batman, it was cool to see like this Batman that was more aligned with like the big crossover comics where he would walk up to a fucking god and somehow come out unscathed, you know. I just wanted to see more of that. I think there was a lot of potential because that Batman is very very underrepresented in my opinion in like the mainline media, and again I prefer the detective grounded Batman, but that's mostly what we get when we look at Batman movies and even Batman shows. So to see the other Batman in such a limelight like he was in the Snyder universe, I was really curious how far that was going to go. I wanted to see how awesome they could make Batman, considering he was going to be this like god fighter, you know. But we never got to see it, obviously.
Also, um, so kind of jumping off that into the next character though, because I wonder if they had tried to sell. I mean, this was only how long? When did Man of Steel come out? 2013.
Yeah.
Yeah, they couldn't have done this unless they were more patient. But like what if they had launched this with like a Batman reboot instead? I wonder how that would have changed things.
Yeah, I wonder too.
Because here's the thing about Superman. Superman is an American icon. It's really cool to watch him fight. He is not an interesting character.
Well, he can be.
But the Cavill Superman, and it's not really his performance. It's just Superman is white bread, and neither Snyder nor Whedon nor anyone else really had any interest in like putting butter on it or something to change it a little bit. Like, I mean, it's representative of like he's a guy who fights for justice and is sad that his people and his planet are dead. Like that's it. We have gained nothing, and now he's been in movies now for I mean obviously he was dead for more than half of this one, so it doesn't really count. But this is now the third movie that he appeared in, and I still just am like, yeah, you exist.
I like Man of Steel. I think Man of Steel is a really great Superman movie overall. Honestly, if Man of Steel just existed on its own and wasn't the jumping off point for a cinematic universe, I think it would be I think it would be looked at upon a lot more favorably.
Yeah, well, I mean, the entire linchpin problem of everything they did is that their first big swing fucking sucks. Dawn of Justice was just a massive letdown.
Yeah.
Like what? Like Man of Steel. Like some people don't like it. Some people really like it. You know, Justice League. Most people just thought like, yeah, it was all right. And now some people really like the Snyder Cut. Some people just think it's like 4 hours of the same thing. But like, Dawn of Justice is just not very good. And I think when you drive home like more than I think Marvel, whatever, you know, in any alternate reality where their path is different, Batman and Superman are just like unquestionably the two biggest characters. And like I would say who do you think let's remove the MCU from the equation. Like before Iron Man came out and made a buttload of money, like who would you say were the two biggest characters in Marvel?
Spider-Man and Spider-Man. Spider-Man. But
Okay.
I can't think of a second one. I think it was definitely Spider-Man.
What
Well, no, no,
about
no, no,
Hulk?
no. Hulk. Yeah, I was about to say. You know what? Hulk. It's Spider-Man and
Everyone,
Hulk.
yeah, everyone knows who Hulk is, even if you know nothing about comic books. Like you're aware of Hulk.
Yeah, because his TV show was so successful. It's probably Hulk. It's Spider-Man and Hulk, I would say.
So the reason that I was bringing that up is like in the same vein, Batman versus Superman were just like indisputably the two biggest DC characters. If after Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 1, they did Spider-Man versus Hulk and it sucked, that would have been like a epic failure.
Which is hilarious because they made a Hulk movie the very next year after Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 1
Yes.
movie. That could have easily happened. It is. It's not great.
Not very good.
No, it's not great.
Partially because they got a director who didn't understand anything about the source material.
They got a director who literally tried to make a visual comic. It was really weird the way it was directed, and
it's funny. You know what's funny to me? When I was working on the bracket, I was just, you know, as I was seeing pictures of the movies, I was having like instant reactions to them. It's funny that there are two movies that are kind of edited that way, and they are Hulk and Ghost Rider 2, and both of them are really bad.
Ghost Rider 2 sucks.
Anyway, but yeah, so to me, like, the linchpin of everything is just like Batman versus Superman was just not very good. And
I think Batman vs. Superman suffers from the same thing that The Last Jedi suffers from, which is that there was clearly a lot of effort put into them, at least in the Ultimate Edition. If you watch the movie, I think it's pretty obvious that whoever made the movie cared and that there was a lot of effort put into the movie, but it missed the mark on so many things for so many people that it kind of was just unforgivable for a lot of people, you know?
Oh, yeah. I would certainly never say I've seen a Zack Snyder film where I don't feel like he's trying. That's for sure.
Right, but it's what I mean by in comparing it to The Last Jedi is that Last Jedi clearly was a movie that people put effort into. There was great shots. There was meaningful storytelling, even if the people didn't like the storytelling because it ruined their favorite character, which is kind of exactly what happened with Batman vs. Superman. I mean, the storytelling in that movie makes, there's some interest. It's cohesive. It's not, like, terrible. But it's hard to get around the fact that the character that people love so much is doing things that you could never imagine them doing. Well, Luke Skywalker, you know.
Well, see, I think the difference is Luke's thing is like is explained in universe by himself. Like he tells you why he's doing what he's doing.
Right. Well, like, I mean, I feel like it's also it's not explained, but it's implied that Batman has gone through everything that has happened. You know, like you see the Robin statue with the Joker painting. You know that Batman's lost his Robin. You know that he's at his like end of his run where he's been grinded down and he's like lost a lot of what he's originally valued. You know, that's there, but it's not like there was no build towards it. It was just like that's how we were introduced to the character. You know, similar with Luke, and I actually like I don't think Last Jedi is as bad of a movie as Batman vs Superman, which I think if anybody watches this video, they're immediately going to turn it off as soon as I say that. But
Well, I don't. I'm not gonna. I'm not. I'm done with people who don't like The Last Jedi. I'm just not doing it with them anymore.
if we're gonna debate that, we should make that a whole nother video. But
Yeah.
I think that it's very similar, the reaction these movies got, because both movies have effort put into them. Both movies aren't completely awful. There are good things about both of them, but both movies have one or two things that happen in the film to beloved characters that people just find unforgivable and make it thus unwatchable, you know?
My problem like the way I would compare them is there's effort put into them and there's a desire to tell a compelling story, but because you want to like, and this is why I think that the scenes on Canto Bight in Last Jedi do kind of annoy me, is because if you want to address every topic that exists in one movie, you're not going to be able to really make it that compelling. And that's what I think they both do. Like think about Batman vs Superman in the sense of like it is like a mix of like 6 different comic arcs that people know about if you're a comic book fan, right?
I know, it's fucking ridiculous.
There are so many, and that's the thing is when, and this is just like a trap for movies, and more movies fall into this these days. Again, especially when people try to establish cinematic universes. If you have 6 different through lines and you want to try to offer insight on all of them, you're not going to do any or at least some of them as well as you could if you try to contain your story a little bit. It's just one of those situations where like, okay, well, I'm going to talk about, like authoritarianism and also faith and also this and also that and also, war and peace and also, all this stuff. I'm going to manage to fit that all into 1 2-hour and 15-minute movie, and all of my thoughts on all of those topics are going to be insightful. And it's like, no, that's not going to work. And it doesn't work in Dawn of Justice because really all of those ideas are dealt with in 2-minute conversations, but they don't really progress that well up until like the end of the movie when they suddenly try to slap them together.
It's insane to think that Zack Snyder took The Dark Knight Returns and Superman Doomsday, mixed them together, and also Darkseid is coming. Like, holy shit. Like, take a breath.
Yeah.
Flesh out a story. Maybe don't shove 3 iconic comic books into one.
The next movie is Justice League, so you better set it up this time because this is the only one you get.
Yeah, it's that's not, to be honest, something that we should point out. That's probably not entirely the fault of Zack Snyder. He might have wanted to flesh this out more. He probably just had a lot of pressure on a studio that was like, "Hey, we're losing to Marvel. Catch up."
Yeah, I mean, the most clear evidence of that is the fact that the other Justice League characters are established in security camera footage in that movie.
Yeah.
And it's just like a side thought. It's like, well, hey, we've established that these people exist. You don't really get to know how they got to where they are or what drives them as characters. You just know that there's a fast guy and a robot guy and a fish guy. Like, good luck. How do I say this? Like, obviously people can make smart movies, and maybe if you want to tell me like depending on these multi-billion-dollar entities to make smart movies is stupid, like I guess maybe you have a point. The thing is, I see these studios try to make smart movies, but they always make the same mistakes to screw it up, or at least most of the time. And you know what? I know another movie that I've been thinking a lot about. You haven't seen it. You know the movie though.
What?
Eternals. A lot of really high level questions and concepts going on in that movie. Do you want to know what else is going on in that movie? You're introduced to 10 main characters at once. And it's just too much. And maybe it's like an internet subculture thing. Because, like, how it is on Twitter or just social media in general? You have this where, like, you say something, but if you don't express it, like, perfectly and like address all possible counterpoints to what you're saying immediately, people like jump on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wonder if maybe that's like what the people who are making these decisions like think is going to happen. It's like, well, if we only deal with this, then then it's not like big and groundbreaking enough. So we've got to deal with every complex topic that we can possibly think of and write down on this list here, and we've got to cover all of them in this movie.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is, but I think all the two of those and Last Jedi is way better than both those movies. I will reiterate that over and over again.
Yes, I agree, but I really don't want to say that in case like this video takes off at all, because if we're gonna defend The Last Jedi, we have to do it in a whole separate video. There's so many people that hate that movie.
Okay, we promise future Last Jedi discussion coming up at some point in the future.
Okay. So, do you think the Snyder Cut is the best film in the DCEU?
So I never saw Aquaman, but
you don't need to. It's all
yeah.
right.
I was like, I didn't hear enough good things about it that it would contend for that. I like Shazam I like Shazam for the same reasons that everyone kind of liked Shazam, was because it was not just dreary and serious, super serious, frowny face, dark gloom all the time.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So really to me, it's probably between those two. And I mean, I guess this one is more like Shazam is good. It's also kind of safe. I appreciate that this one exists in a sense. Just because there is a vision to it, even though it is 4 hours and it definitely could have been not 4 hours. It also, all the changes that were made to the original theatrical release, I think there's a compromise there. I think solid 325 might have been good.
Yeah.
But hey, if you have streaming and the studio's letting you do it, do it. You don't get a chance to release 4-hour cuts of every movie you make, even if you want to. So yeah, I would say it's probably the best film in that franchise.
Yeah, I think the stakes were higher, the scale was higher. I like Shazam too, but you're right. Shazam's a very safe movie, whereas this movie took a lot of risks, and I think a lot of those risks paid off.
But that said, much like Avatar 2, I probably will never watch it again.
Yeah.
I feel like in movies that long, I have to extract maximum value from them the first time I watch it. So I really hope no one ever makes a 3-hour. Well, someone did make a 3-hour movie that I love.
What?
If Endgame.
The Batman's 3 hours too.
Oh yeah, shit, you're right.
There are good 3-hour movies. It's just they have to not feel like 3 hours,
Yeah, and I mean, granted, the Batman was a little long. I mean, you and I didn't even finish it in one sitting when I showed it to you.
That's right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, there can be good 3-hour movies, and there can be what Avatar and this are, which is close to good movies that are that long, or movies that are good but don't need to be as long as they were. Yeah. Definitely, substantially shorter could have been executed there. But I finally watched it. God help us all.
Yeah, wow, it just took you, what, 2 years?
Yeah, and now they're rebooting the entire thing and none of it matters.
I know. Sorry. Back when it first came out, there was still a possibility that it was going to matter.
Well, but ironically, I didn't want it to matter because I thought the first one was just kind of eh.
Yeah.
And then they even realized that it wasn't working, and they, spun Aquaman back off into its own movie and didn't even mention the others.
Aquaman wasn't bad.
They're making another one. Can't.
But it's going to be the last movie in the Snyderverse, other than Flash, which is supposed to just actually reboot everything.
Oh my god, I can't believe they're doing that. But there's a Shazam sequel too, isn't there?
Yes. Yeah, you're right. Actually, that is going to be. Those 3 movies are going to be the last movies in the Snyderverse. If you can even call it the Snyderverse anymore, because it's not.
No, I doubt there's going to be much tie-in to it.
I think that they in those movies, they still consider the original cut of Justice League canon and not this one, which I think is dumb, but you can't really do anything else, because if you're going to make this canon and not follow up on any of the future shit, then it's not going to make any sense.
Yeah, it's also totally pointless then. Why would you create more canon knowing that you're never gonna
continue it? Yeah. Final things I'll say on the Snyder Cut. I was a really big fan of the Snyderverse. Even though there was a lot of missteps, I really enjoyed it overall. It was very reminiscent of the New 52 comics, which I'm a huge fan of. Even they are controversial themselves. A lot of people don't like the New 52. I like them. But what I was going to say is, as much as I loved the Snyderverse and I really wanted to see the continuation of, like, I wanted to see where that was all leading. I was very curious about the apocalyptic world and how that was going to get resolved. The one thing that DC could have done to make me go, all right, fine, reboot the universe, was put James Gunn in charge. Fucking, the moment they did that, and he was like, no, we're not going to go forward with the Snyderverse. Don't worry, I have an idea. I was like, fine. You got my favorite director, my favorite, like, creator in media all over, and you put him in charge. That's probably the only way you're going to make me okay with rebooting this entire thing. Because I'm really excited to see what James Gunn is going to do with Superman. And, like, he's writing the next Superman movie. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, I know he said he...
Hilarious because of his involvement with Brightburn. But he's writing the next Superman movie. I'm really excited about that because James Gunn, he gets it. Like, I trust James Gunn more than I trust any other director, writer, creator when he takes a comic book and adapts from it, you know? He made the Guardians of the Galaxy so much cooler than they originally were. They were not that cool until James Gunn made a movie about them, and now even the comics are like, yeah, this is what the Guardians are now. You know, they've always been this way in comics. It's like, oh no, they're not. Peter Quill was a fucking space cop. Like, he was nothing like this. But I'm so glad that they made these changes because I think James Gunn adapting the Guardians into what they are now was so much better than what it would have been if you had gotten anybody else to do it. So if there's anybody that I trust to take a comic book and adapt it and make it better in more ways than one, it's James Gunn. And I'm sad to see that we'll never get a continuation of Zack Snyder's universe, but I'm also very excited to see what James Gunn's universe is going to be.
Yeah, I don't care about Superman, really. I have enjoyed... Like, I have genuinely liked 1.5 Superman movies.
Superman is a character that's really hard to get right, but if you do, he is one of the best characters in all of comics.
By the way, actually, check that. I'll say, like, I enjoy 2.5 Superman. Wait, one... yeah, 2.5.
What's 2.5?
I'm gonna say I'm giving a full point to Superman 1, and then I'm giving like 0.75 to Man of Steel and Superman 2.
Superman 2 was weird.
Yeah, that's why I like it. But it's still, I mean, compared to the other things that it has, it's a masterpiece.
Well, yeah, compared to Quest for Peace, it's pretty great.
Had I done my plan, that was the lowest rated Metacritic of any of the movies that were in the pool when I was trying to do that.
That makes sense. That movie's fucking garbage.
But out all of the movies that, like, that is worse than the rebooted Fantastic Four, like the newest one.
Mm-hmm.
And that movie sucks.
Yeah, that movie's really bad.
But the reason I say that is because I say I don't care about Superman, but to your point, I bet when I see a James Gunn Superman trailer, I'm gonna be like, okay, actually, you know what? That I'll give that a shot. I'm a simple person. If you put a DC or Marvel superhero in front of me, there's a decent chance I'll give it a fair look.
I hope the next time we see... I hope that if we ever see a Batman Superman film again, it's not going to be Batman versus Superman. It's going to be, like, World's Finest. Like, it's going to be them teaming up and showing their strengths together as a team. One of my favorite comics, it sucks because I cannot remember for the life of me where I read this. I'm pretty sure it was Future State, one of their new comic lines they got going on. But there was a comic where Batman and Superman were investigating a hotel or an apartment complex that a demon was summoned in. Batman and Superman went in there. The demon was in there, and Superman immediately went up to it and started just like, going fist fighting with it, getting thrown around, throwing it around, And Batman started going around the room trying to figure out what happened and what they can do to fix this problem. And what Batman found was a book that was clearly like a summoning book, and started flipping through the pages while Superman was fighting a fucking full-fledged demon in the background, like this big buff horned thing. What ended up I love this. I don't know why I love this so much, but I absolutely love this. Batman found that he needed to say the demonic word for banish, and it would send the demon back to where it came from. But Batman doesn't speak demonic, but you know who does? Superman, because Superman has so much knowledge up in his brain, because that was his whole thing when he came to Earth and he found the Fortress of Solitude. He had a database of every universe ever, studied that for a freaking long time. The thing about Superman is that he would never know to apply that knowledge unless he had Batman there. Batman found that he needed the demonic word for banish to banish that demon, and then he just asked Superman what that was. Literally in the middle of the fight, he was like, "Clark, what's the demonic word for banish?" And then Clark belched this horrible demon language out, and then the demon vanished. That was it. I loved that moment so much because Superman is all powerful. He's unbeatable. He has the knowledge of every being and every civilization, every planet in the whole universe. But without Batman, he would never know how to apply that knowledge. And I really hope that that's what we get next time we get a Batman and Superman movie. I want to see both of their strengths work with each other in that way.
Genuinely, I think James Gunn directing a world's finest movie would be really good. Because, these movies are so, grimdark and gloomy that I want Snyder, as far away from that concept as possible.
I know.
That is not your wheelhouse, buddy. And in a sense, you nailed it because you wanted gloom. Well, gloomy is watching our two icons have to fight each other. Where on the flip side, if you're James Gunn, I'd be like, hell yeah, let's have them go on an adventure to the moon. Why not?
With 80s music playing in the background.
Yeah. See, I think that I don't know if they'll ever get to that point, especially now that there is a gloomy noir Batman that made bank and everyone loves. But I would be interested to see that concept kind of. I mean, because that's the thing is everything about DC right now, or maybe they've tried to get away from it a little bit, but New 52, constantly dark as hell, just all the time, just weird, sad, depressing, creepy shit happening. Everything I hear about it makes me be like, ugh, that's disturbing. DC movies directed by, largely directed for the period of, a decade by Zack Snyder. Grimdark, slow-mo lightning, no one smiles ever stuff. And then all the DC cartoons, despite the fact that many of them are pretty good, are all kind of through that same premise. Whereas Marvel's rolling up here with, Hulk and the Super Friends and stuff, and then they're making movies that have hijacked the entire concept of the modern industry to the point where everyone wants to make jokes like they do. So screw it. Let's do something weird. It's it's weird stuff. Let's do, even though I didn't care for the second one of these that much, or as much as other people, it's all right. Let's do more Shazam and Joker stuff. Honestly, let's just try it.
You didn't like Joker?
It was okay.
I loved Joker. I thought that was such a cool, delve into, a Joker character in a gritty, if he wasn't based, if we didn't know previously that he was based off of a comic book in, a Batman comic, I thought it was just a really good standalone, character study on who, on a person just going insane,
Let's save that for the thing, because that movie's placement, might be controversial.
Oh, shit, that's on the bracket. Oh, fuck. Okay.
Everything that I could remember or find in a list that was in front of my face made this right. Like I said, there are 91 movies, and who knows, I might have missed something.
Well, I'm going to go through it and make sure you didn't. So, speaking of which, that's how we should end it. We are going to do a bracket tournament pitting every Marvel movie and DC movie up against each other in a movie battle royale to see who comes out on top. Check it out. See if it's The Dark Knight or not.
Yeah.
It might not be. I mean, The Dark Knight's definitely the champ going into this tournament, but there are some other really fucking good movies on there too, like Watchmen, the Ultimate Edition, anyways.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen the Ultimate Edition of Watchmen. I only saw the original.
Well, the original's not terrible either, but the Ultimate Edition is.
Wow, you deflated there like a balloon.
Well, because the Ultimate Edition is literally like a panel for panel recreation of the comic, and the comic is maybe the.
Good theatrical cuts. I know, what a crazy idea. How about the cut of your movie that you release to the public first is just the good one?
I know.
Don't do that, because then they'll all be 4 hours, and I can't do that. Dude, I've got to be persuaded to watch like a 3-hour movie in theaters at least now, I think.
All right, I think we should end this recording.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, all 2 of you, for watching. All right, bye.
Also, if this video gets any Last Jedi related comments, let me know, and I will prepare my novel about why it's a defensible movie. Anyway.
Well, it absolutely is. I have a novel, too. Last thing I'll say on Star Wars. I saw a video the other day of a guy ranking all the Star Wars movies, and he put Rise of Skywalker above Last Jedi, and that makes me want to just fucking curl up in a ball.
Nope.
I can't believe people think that.
Wherever you put those movies, I'm willing to negotiate. That specific part, if you want to put them like 4 and 5, I mean, I don't agree, but like whatever. If you want to put them like 8 and 9, I don't really agree, but like whatever, you do you on that regard. But I don't really understand why people would say that.
It's insane. The Rise of Skywalker, if there's one thing I could say about it, no one cared. No one gave a shit about that movie, and it's clear.
Yeah, I'm the only person in the world who has fun. Well, apparently not. Apparently there's someone else. It's not a good movie, but I still have fun with that movie.
I have fun with that movie because it has lightsabers in it, and I like lightsabers. That's about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been on my thing about like this is what happens when you turn a smart movie into something so controversial that the studio is like afraid to make another one. That is the cultural, like that movie to me represents like the zenith of like studio culture, where they tried to make a movie that had lightsabers and had boring stuff like war is bad and whatever, but then they also tried to make a movie that had some challenging aspects to it, and the movie was so divisive that they were like, let's just make a movie that is only lightsabers and fan service, because we know that'll be safe.
Yeah. I stopped watching that guy's video the moment he put Force Awakens above A New Hope. I was like, okay, you're done.
That doesn't work for me. It's like if God, I was thinking, what would this be like? And then I was gonna say it would be like writing a prequel before you finish the series. But fucking George R.R. Martin did that. There's literally a prequel to Game of Thrones before he finishes the damn mainline series.
And that's successful. I mean, House of Dragon's pretty good. I've only seen the first 2 episodes, but what I've seen, I like it a lot.
Yes, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I'm excited for the future. That show is like a fascinating show to discuss. And I won't go on too long about this, but like that is a show that like breaks a lot of like conventions about things that I think like most people like, but somehow it works for them. Like there is just a whole lot of sitting around and talking about politics and family and like that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of the first few seasons of Game of Thrones. Again, we should probably talk about this in an entire separate video, because Game of Thrones is something we can go off on for hours too.
No, Game of Thrones doesn't exist anymore. Game of Thrones. Do you want to know how I enjoy Game of Thrones now?
How?
YouTube clips of the moments that I remember.
Yeah, me too. It's so sad.
No, it's not like that. So there was a lot of stuff in Game of Thrones that I didn't care about ever. Like I'm gonna offend people. So sorry if this ruins your rise to YouTube stardom. I'm gonna offend a lot of people.
Okay.
When I was first watching the series, I really did not care. They were both good characters. Don't get me wrong; they were both really cool characters. I did not care. Every time it cut to Arya and the Hound, I would listen to them. I would appreciate their dialogue, and then they would talk about like where they were going, and I would immediately be like, I don't know what's happening. I don't care. Get me back to King's Landing, Winterfell.
Really? So did you not like Arya's arc?
No, I liked her arc. There was a whole lot of time where they were just sitting in the fields talking, or going to talk to people whose names I didn't remember, by the end of the episode or something.
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean is rather than going back through and watching all of that stuff again, I just watched like the scenes where she's with the faceless or what's it called? Not the faceless. What's it called? Is it the face? I can't remember what the name is. You know the thing.
The assassin group? I think they are the faceless.
Yeah, the faceless, or yeah, something like that. Like just those moments, and I just like skip the rest, or like, there's a lot of stuff in Game of Thrones that I'm happy to like forget.
Okay, but we have to come back to DC because I have a Snyder Cut trailer playing over and over again over us talking. It's not gonna make sense if we're talking about Star Wars and fucking Game of Thrones. I'm gonna have to edit this.